So Donald Trump has a person that he is likely to nominate to be the commissioner of the IRS. Now, if history is any guide, he will pick someone who will try to destroy the IRS. He did similar things with the EPA, the Department of Education, Department of Energy, and the list goes on. And of course, Consumer Financial Protection Bureau. If someone said they were looking to destroy that agency, he would nominate their head. Nominate them as the head of that agency. Scott Pruitt, for example, sued the EPA 14 times. He's now the head of the EPA. Rick Perry said we should eliminate the Department of Energy. He's now the head of the Department of Energy. You get it. So his new pick is Charles Rettig, we believe, to be the commissioner. Now, he's not in yet. If he is in fact nominated, he'll have to go through a confirmation process. So it is important that you know his background and why he was selected. So TYT Investigates looked into what is his expertise, and we found out some very interesting facts about Mr. Rettig. Michael Tracy reporting here. Based in Beverly Hills, Charles Chuck Rettig has represented a bevy of rich clients in disputes with tax collectors, with a special emphasis on offshore account holders who may run afoul of US law. Great. So his expertise is not in collecting taxes, it is the exact opposite. His expertise is in helping rich people evade taxes. Avoid taxes, depending on however you want to describe it. You know, he's a lawyer for the rich, and he says, oh no, moving their money offshore, that's not evasion, that's just being smart and making sure you don't get it, and then they have to increase your taxes and fees to make up for it. Yeah, very cute. Rettig has characterized tax scofflaws as well-intentioned citizens who want to hand over their fair share, but simply lack the necessary knowledge. He says, quote, there are a lot of wannabe taxpayers who just don't know how to get back into the system, he said in 2004. Quote, when you provide some incentive for people to come forward, you find a tremendous number of folks to step up to the plate. He's referring to people who have moved their money offshore to hide it. They just can't figure out how to pay the taxes. Well, one way is you bring the money back into the country and you report it and you pay taxes on it. Voila, mystery solved. No, they're keeping the taxes abroad in places like the Cayman Islands and Switzerland and Panama. Why? Because they don't want to be taxed on it. So they have been advised by people like Rettig, you move the money offshore and then you hold it hostage until you get a lower rate, and then you say, okay, now you have provided the correct incentive for me to bring my money back into the country and pay a much, much lower tax rate, as Warren Buffett points out, oftentimes way lower than their secretaries. By the way, that happens a great deal of the time, as Buffett points out, when they even keep their money here in America through all the loopholes. But this is for the extra greedy who say your current loopholes are not good enough. I'm still gonna move my money offshore and try to hide it from the US government. In 2005, Rettig publicly defended a tax sheltering practice called the S Corporation Charitable Contribution Strategy, in which a firm donates shares to a tax-exempt entity and then buys them back several years later in order to maximize capital gains, which are taxed at much lower rates than the shares would have been initially. So this is basically an SC2. And he said, oh, no, it's just perfectly good. I mean, it seems like we're just moving money around to avoid taxes, but no. Here's what he said back then. The SC2 transaction is not the poster child for abuse of tax shelters that the government would portray. The tax result may be highly objectionable to the IRS, but as a technical matter, many knowledgeable practitioners are convinced it will be upheld in litigation. Well, guess what? It wasn't. KPMG, the accounting firm which developed SC2, was later subject to a wide-ranging tax fraud indictment for its tax sheltering practices. 3 people were ultimately convicted, while charges against 13 were dismissed. The SC2 strategy was banned by the IRS in April of 2004. But Fox, meet Henhouse. Now, the guy who wanted to do a tax shelter that was so fraudulent that it was banned is going to be the head of the IRS if nominated and confirmed. As always with Trump, if there are global financial elites to be protected, banks to be protected, billionaires to be protected, the corrupt who have given money to politicians to be protected, Trump is going to protect them at all costs. And he's going to send someone to the IRS whose job is to destroy the IRS. Now, you think that they won't collect taxes from you guys? No. They got to make up the difference. If they let the rich get away with all their loopholes and all their offshore accounts and all their fraudulent schemes, the money's got to come from somewhere. Payroll tax, fees, fines, extra taxes on the middle class. They're going to get it out of your hide, and Rettig's going to make sure that's going to happen. Now, here's the concluding paragraph, Michael Tracy, and I want to focus on this for a reason. He says, the IRS must balance, this is according to Rettig, must balance service to the taxpayer community with an appropriate degree of enforcement of our nation's tax laws. Rettig wrote that back in 2013 Forbes.com column. In 2006, Rettig delivered a lecture entitled, Minimizing Exposure to Scrutiny in Your Client's Wealth Transfer Strategies. Isn't that a nice way of putting it? Views from the tax court and the IRS. Given how he has frequently taken legal positions at odds with IRS policy, it remains to be seen which interests he intends on, quote, servicing as IRS commissioner. He's already told you he thinks the IRS should service those high-end taxpayers. He calls them the taxpayer community, and that they should be allowed to do their wealth transfers to hide their money. Now, if he's the head of the IRS, it's going to be open season. Look, a lot of people voted for Donald Trump because they were tired of the establishment. They couldn't stand the status quo, and they wanted to drain the swamp. That part of it was an excellent electoral strategy because the American people hate corruption. But it was a joke, and it was a joke meant to be played on you. As soon as he got into office, he filled his cabinet with Goldman Sachs employees, including the president of Goldman Sachs, who's his top economic advisor. He did everything he could to deregulate the banks and to lower taxes on the banks, the financial elites, millionaires, billionaires, you name it. By 2027, the 83% of the tax cuts they just passed are going to go to the just top 1%. And then he takes a guy like Chuck Rettig and says, oh, you're the expert on avoiding taxes for the rich? Great, I got the perfect position for you, the head of the IRS. He is the corruption. Open your eyes. If you become a member of the Young Turks, you'll be saying,
I'm like a smart person.
So do it right now, tytnetwork.com/join. Get the whole Young Turks show every day.